Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment on The Weekend Show. My name is Andy Madaki.
And I'm Edidion Frank.
How are you, Didion?
I'm good. I'm good, actually.
Great. So in December, we were talking about how people needed to spend time to celebrate, and some people had a lot of food to eat, while some people didn't have any. But what's important to note is that we didn't see as many hampers as we used to see in the past.
Yes, I noticed
And
that
no one gave me a
actually.
bag of rice. Rather, I
Same.
gave people rice this year.
Same.
And it's a reflection of what the economy and what the society is at the moment. Now, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was sworn into power, one of the first things he did was to float the naira and remove fuel subsidy. Now, that has had a ripple effect and a domino effect on everything in Nigeria, because whatever you do in Nigeria and globally has to be tied to transportation and feeding. And so what that meant was that food prices have gone reasonably higher. The naira got devalued by about 34%. So that makes you understand how much you've lost from what you already have. Now, earning power has also reduced massively. And so how does this affect people? How does this affect businesses? Inflation just between December and now has risen from, I think, 34.6% to 34.8%. And this is a huge jump from what it was at, a couple of years ago. Now, how is this affecting Nigerians, and how are businesses modifying their practices to ensure that it is inclusive and everybody is well catered to? Now, for the last 6 weeks, we've been identifying and speaking to young, brilliant people who are doing great stuff in their space and people whose product I do like. And so joining us to have this conversation, we
have Oche Ejiga, who is the CEO of O's Grill Shack. Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure being here.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
Well,
Year.
welcome back to the show. You know, Chairs on our montage. So
yeah.
yeah, and the last time you were here, you were on our Entrepreneur
Yes,
Spotlight.
yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Interestingly, I think was that a year or 2 years ago? Almost 2 years
Almost
ago
2 years
now.
ago, yes.
And we had this same conversation.
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago, we thought the prices of things had gone so high.
So high.
At some point, chicken wings were even scarce.
Yes,
in
there was
the
a
market.
scarcity just due to farm. So the process from the farm to get into the end user, there were scarcities from the production. So that affected us as businesses as well.
And interestingly, the bakers and poultry farmers were the first people to be hit by the economy. Also
Yeah.
because they had the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which means feed and all whatnot. What has changed in the last 2 years since we had this same conversation about food inflation and how it's affecting businesses?
Well, what has changed? Prices have gone up.
So it's got worse.
It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. I mean, at the time when we last spoke, I would take, for example, a kilo of wings. At that time, the kilo of wings was about 2,500. You had reason. At that time, we were like, what? It's extremely high. But as I speak today, a kilo of wing ranges from 5,500 naira up, depending on where you're getting it to 8,500 naira. To put this in perspective, we use about 10 kilos a week. Now, in the past, so that would be about, and then we usually purchase them in we purchase 10 kilo bags. So we use about anywhere between 100 kilos. So now you see the multiplier effect. So what we used to buy at 25,000 for a bag of 10 kilo, we're currently buying with a range of 55,000 to 75,000 for one bag. We use about 10 bags a week. Now, it is difficult because you have to either transfer that cost to the customer or you reduce costs, and it's very difficult in this time. We can't do that. So it's difficult. So we just had a price increment in our products now, and we've had the market react. Some people are fine with it, some people knowing the current economical dispensation we're in. But some people are like, I know it's a bit too expensive for me. So they have moved away from our product. So that's the difficulty we're facing right now, because we have to increase prices. So inflation is going up, prices are going up, we are increasing prices, but the consumer spending has not increased. So that's the difficult place we're facing right now.
What do you think are the key drivers to food inflation in Nigeria right now? Particularly in this case you just mentioned, it's over 3 times the
Yes,
regular price.
About 300%. So I think one of the key factors is cost of transportation in terms of the fuel pricing. So fuel prices have gone up. Most of the farms, let me take the FCT for example. Most of the farms are not within the FCT. The biggest poultry farms are in Ogun, are in Lagos, in Osun. So to get those things and those products to Abuja, the prices have gone up. My supplier, as of December, had issues with supply. She had placed an order for about 20 tons of product, and that's for the festive period, but they couldn't get it to her because of transportation costs and the rise in that. And so she was stuck with no product when she had to sell during festive period, and then they delivered on like the 27th, so she still has stock. But I think one of the key things is the rising cost of petroleum prices, because transportation has gone up. So to move goods from one place to another, that's the first point in which prices are affected.
Interesting. And I do have a couple of questions because you have this deal called Wings Wednesdays, which
Yes.
I absolutely love.
Thank you very much.
Even though I do prefer the chicken burger and I'm meant
Best
to
chicken
be
burger.
fit. But something which kind of concerned me was in the last 2 years, you didn't increase your prices.
Yes.
And I go to restaurants and I see how expensive wings are, and I could
Yes.
get triple of that from you.
Yes.
Now, for most Nigerians, it's now been, everybody's now an economist. It's now opportunity cost. I have a vendor who, as much as I can cook, I still, sometimes you just want to eat from
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yes.
And so I order food from time to time. Great food. And recently I saw another vendor and it looked reasonably cheaper. And so I bought it. And it was the worst jollof rice I've had. And I was like, I should have just done this for myself. And so what I now thought about was the fact that this person has dropped quality, reduced quantity, because it was either that or the Bolt or Uber or whatever delivery rider had eaten some of my food. So it's so bad that quality has dropped,
Yes.
prices have increased.
Yes.
Hunger is so bad that you now have riders eating foods they are meant to deliver. And I've heard this across board. But in the last 2 years, you didn't increase your prices until now,
Yes.
and it's still reasonably fair.
Yes.
What was the trick to that? What was the strategy around that?
Okay, so one of the things that we did is we reduced overhead costs.
Okay.
Now, our overhead costs across the board is, we offer a model which is, at the moment, currently, it's a pickup and delivery service.
Okay.
Because of that, our overhead costs for a large space, take for example now, if we had this space at the moment, we would require extra hands, and then that increases our overhead costs. Now, unfortunately, it was either increase the prices or reduce our staff strength. But we didn't do it to a point where it would be detrimental to the business, right? So we reduced a bit of our staff strength, increased salaries, but the primary reason why we are able to keep our costs is the margins, right? We're still profitable. And through this period, we have remained profitable. So a lot of people, in terms of pricing, tend to want to increase their price to such a level where you are making an immediate profit. However, I study economics, so there's a fine line where your profit goes. So I've come to that point where my break-even point is slightly above. Now, what that means is that in order to be profitable, I need to increase my sales. So I'm focused on increasing sales as opposed to increasing prices. And it's very particular to me that the value in which we give in our products, in our food, must remain the same. It must remain the same. It cannot drop. Because one thing about it, if your product, what we sell is our product, and our product must be 100% all the time. Because like you rightfully said now, you went and you purchased rice from somewhere else. The first thing is like, no, this is this is not good or this is subpar. But we've had conversations about the chicken burger. It is expensive, right? There's a cost of cheese that's going up. The cost of chicken fillet is going up. But that product must be able to stand quality checks. And so we've not reduced our quality. It's constant, but our margins are really, really small. So our focus now is to increase turnover.
Interestingly, I watched. It's also sad that we get a lot of educational material from social media these days, and some of them is just rubbish statistics. But I watched some preacher give a story that the problem with black-owned businesses, and I'll bring that to Nigerian businesses, is that we run the drug dealer model and say no to drugs. But what this means is that when we buy an item for 1,000 naira
Yes.
to sell, our first goal is how can I sell this for 2,000 naira?
Yes.
Because we want to make our returns and profit immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, if you buy this for 1,000 naira and you calculate transportation and all the logistics, you can sell it for 1,300 naira.
Exactly.
You still have a profit and make sure you push, which
Exactly.
is exactly what you are doing. And it does make a lot of sense to me, which is why it just reminded me of that, where we really have this make a profit quick,
Yes.
get this margin quick,
Yes.
as opposed to sustaining
Yes.
the business. So I think it's commendable that you have done what you've done.
Yeah.
Based on your interactions with customers, like the
Yes.
example Andy gave earlier,
Yes.
how has this rising cost affected food choices or even eating habits? Because it has, I've respected myself for the past year.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I would normally like maybe treat myself to
Yes.
maybe every
Like
week,
snail
like
and-
snails,
Yes.
things
Okay.
like that.
Yes, yes.
Or Chinese, you know, just
Yes,
things
yes,
like that.
yes,
But
yes.
now it's not like, oh, once a month, not once a week
yes.
again.
Do you know,
so
I
how
can't
has
remember when last I went to a restaurant.
Yes. No. It is a very valid point. So, our primary market is, since we offer a pickup and delivery model, and we're open from 9 to 6 p.m. So our primary model is the middle class worker who's in the office at the time, who probably has not packed a lunch, but they want to eat something that is of quality, but a reasonable priced item. And then we're offering a service where it's comfortable, we bring the food to you. So those are the few things to capture. But in terms of habits, it has affected it. You cannot shy away from it. Let me use myself as a personal example now. If I used to go out maybe once a week, I go out once a month now.
Yes.
It's a treat because I'm thinking like, do I really want to consume this amount of food now? Also, for instance, my wife likes sushi, and she told herself the truth. She's like, I cannot afford to eat this as often, and not because she cannot afford it, but it does not make economical sense right now to order sushi that's maybe 30,000. So if you used to eat it 5 times a week, you can't afford to eat it 5 times a week now, because there are other things that require real costing. Electricity has gone up. Petrol has gone up. So people are changing their perspective of how often do I want to go. But you see, here's the thing about products we offer. Because they're reasonable priced, right? And we're not in your face all the time. And because our product speaks for itself, so we have certain days where certain items are pushed. So for instance, like he mentioned, our Wings Wednesdays, right? It's a weekly reminder, okay, I want wings. You might not have it
This week.
this week, but you program to have it next week. So now we're also looking for new customers and just new customers currently, constantly. But the repeat customers already have a staple that this is the product that is of value. My key thing here is value. So it means that in the back of my mind, okay, I want wings. I know where to get it.
So another part about eating out, which I find quite problematic, but it's not unfair to the businesses, is that you go to buy food and you see a service charge, then you see tax on it, and most states are now introducing
The tax
consumption
reform.
tax. And I'm waiting to see the outcome of the tax reform bill,
Tax
but this
reform
now
bill.
becomes so much. But that is a bigger conversation which we will have at
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
time. But you mentioned things like cheese. Last week I wanted to buy wings, but I was like, there's food at home, so I'll do it next week. And just like you say, that programming, I now know that that's something I want to do next week, and we just might. But while we even still have like the chicken, which you can get locally, like rice, which the previous government and this government has tried to make sure we grow some of these things locally, condiments play a major role. Now we have some Nigerian companies that have started creating spices, but we still can't get all of that from Nigeria, so it still remains a constant burden. Do you think that in Nigeria we've limited ourselves to just the main foods as opposed to the value chain that contributes to a great meal? Rice is rice,
Yeah.
Yes.
but it's how you spice it
Yes.
that actually does cost money. Do you think that's a window of opportunity for Nigerians interested in agriculture and business to dig deeper into?
It is. It is. Just the value chain of a product is not just, okay, let me take, for example, the chicken, right? You have a chicken, you kill the chicken, you prepare the chicken, but the chicken has different parts, right? Some people might like the drumsticks, some people might like the chicken fillet or the chicken breast, and some people might like the wings. So those are different parts. So it's the same thing with the business scope of it, the full circle. Okay, let me just go over it. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday who was into coffee. Now, he started the coffee shop, right? And it's doing fantastic. But he now took a step back. Okay, I can go further, right? About this, my cafe. How about I start farming my own coffee? So now, not only does he have a cafe, right? He owns his own farm. So he owns the whole production line. And the goal now is now to export coffee. So there's actually different opportunities for young people to key and plug into the value chain. We always focused on the finished product, right? The shiny product. But most of us don't want to go through the process. For instance, if you take crude oil, right? Most people think that the only thing you can get from crude oil is petrol, PMS, but that is absolutely wrong. There's the byproduct from crude oil.
I heard there are close to 29
Yes,
or
there's
more
so many. You get
byproducts,
PMS, you
yes.
get DPK, so many things, right? Petroleum products, just so many things. But you see, if one person is focused on, I just want petroleum product from it, you lose on a lot of opportunities which you can get from that. So I think young people need to key in the process that you might not necessarily be the person who's doing the finished product, right? You can either enter the transportation part of it, the food chain, right? Or the byproduct of it is like, I can open a farm. In my farm, I want to do dairy products. So I want to supply cheese locally. Or I want to do strawberries locally. And I actually do want to appreciate the government, the current government in power, because they're trying to get people's mindset to shift that you can actually do this. But I guess that's a different conversation because there are many things tied around to making sure that works.
I was going to say, do you actually think they're making people's minds shift that way, or they've made the economy in such a way that your mind is just naturally
For the
shifting?
average mind,
that
my
way?
condition make crayfish
Exactly.
versus
Yeah,
bread.
that's what I was going to
I'm
say.
compelled.
Yes.
Which leads me to my next question. So do you think government policies such as subsidies or even import restrictions have helped or even worsened the situation for food businesses like yours?
Okay, let's take, for example, the rice ban for the previous government. It put a strain. The intentions might have been good, right? But it put a strain on businesses, right? The intention was for manufacturers to produce and be able to sell. That is good. But what I find is that these policies sometimes don't work on the grassroots level that is supposed to work on. That's supposed to work on, because how would I put it? I'm trying to look for the exact words to say. So, okay, they say go and farm. They say go and farm, go and farm. Oh, young people should get into farming, and young people. But the tools are not usually given to them. And even though the tools are there, sometimes the information to get the tools are not there. So it's a bit difficult to even carry through to the government policies.
Okay.
Interesting. We'll leave the government to play its part because we tend to focus on how this affects the average Nigerian. And so sometimes we get our financial analysts to break it down. But for today, we wanted to see it from the lens of
Okay.
business. But let's talk about you
Okay.
real quick. Why did you start O's Grill? What is O's Grill and how can we find you?
Okay, real quick. So it started quite early from a family background. I'm the last of 6 children, and growing up, I just happened to find myself in the kitchen quite often. Either my siblings, older siblings, was like, make something for me to eat, and I just like, okay, or fry my egg. And my brothers cannot fry egg to save their lives. And so I was in the kitchen quite a lot, and I actually enjoyed the process of making food. Coming to my tertiary education, I had now taken food very serious, and I wanted to go to the Cordon Bleu in Chicago. It's a culinary arts school. And funny story, my father at the time said, you want to go and become a cook. And this was in the late 90s. And he just couldn't comprehend it. He's like, no, if you want to go to the kitchen and cook. And I was heartbroken. And I was like, but this. So fast forward, I get into marketing and business. And during my school years, I just realized that we'd like to grill for friends to come over and just grill and cook. So it's something that was birthed out of passion. And then fast forward to 2016, there was just a lot of different events were happening. And so from time to time, I'll do as a vendor, okay, let me join this event. And I just realized that it was something that I was passionate about, first things first. And I just realized that it's actually something I want to do. So we registered the business, and we had initial investment. And so it's just been...
How old is the business now?
We were registered as a business in 2016.
Wow.
Yes.
So that's 9 years now.
Yes. So we've been open. Not one day have we closed our doors. Through COVID, we've been open. Funny story about COVID, though. During COVID, because we're operating a delivery model before most businesses keyed into it. Yeah. So we got a pass now. In front of health and safety, we got our staff a place that was sanitized, and so they worked out of there during COVID. So we're able to actually deliver food during the COVID period.
Where can we find O's Grill?
Okay, so you can find us online. We actually have a website, www.ogrillsshack.com. And you can find us on Instagram, O_grillsng. And you can just place your order. We'll bring it to you.
Ochejiga, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
joining
It's
us.
always a pleasure being here.
O's Wings.
Oh,
No
yes.
problem.
Show.
No problem. You put
But
it out.
Proud of what you're doing.
Yes,
Keep
thank
on
you very
doing
much.
it.
Thank you very much, sir.
And we wish you all the best.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. A
That's
pleasure
the
being
much
here.
we can take on this segment.